Welcome back, everybody, to the Focus to Win podcast. I'm Austin, and that's Lee. It's been a while, so we got to reintroduce ourselves. But today, we got a really important episode. We're going to talk about friendships, not only deciding who you are going to spend your time with, but how to start to, I guess, level out who are the people you spend most of your time with. So, Lee, why don't you start here? You have a lot more wisdom on this probably than me.
Well, I'm going to go from something I had said earlier, and it was something my dad told me, and obviously your dad told you the same thing. He said, you're wealthy when you have this many friends that you can count on. Like, I'll never forget him saying, wealthy when you have 5 friends, that if you had a terrible, whatever that incident is, you get locked up, whatever it may be, you need somebody, you can pick up the phone and call these people. So if you have 5 of them, that's wealth.
Yeah.
And your dad told you the same thing. And
yeah, he tells me as you get older, I remember I was in high school when he brought this up. I had like probably a group of 10 friends that we all were always together. And he says, hate to tell you, son, but as you get older, you'd be lucky if you can count them on one hand.
Life happens.
Yeah. And life did. It exactly happened. Life separates you guys. Some people moved away. Some people stayed. Some people just went on different life paths that didn't align with whatever you were trying to obtain at that moment. And he was exactly right. I mean, I probably have 2 or 3 really strong friends in my life that I can count on in any given moment and rely on.
The other thing with that is some pass away.
Yeah.
Right? Some had some really good, really, really close friends that have passed away. One was a motorcycle accident. One was cancer. So just stuff that's happened, freak accidents. And then I think of ones I went to high school with that had overdose or anything else that happens, car accidents.
It's usually like when you least expect it. Some of the times it's the least expected person.
Right.
So let's dive deep into how do we decide who our friends are. As you mature in life, you start to maybe realize some things you didn't see as a younger kid. When you become older, more mature, egos get in the way on some things. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how do you decide who your friends are from the get-go.
Well, I think when you're younger, like playing sports is a great way to meet friends, right? Because you have very, most case similarities. You have things in common. You're playing a sport together. You need each other, and especially the key positions that are playing off of each other. Like I played offensive line, so the running backs, quarterback, they all needed us. So they made sure that they were super close to me and other linemen, because if we didn't protect them, they weren't getting any yardage or scoring. So you end up developing these really good relationships as time goes on. And I remember my dad telling me about the 5, and I was like, man, I'm counting. I'm like, man, I probably got 15 that are really close at the time. And I was late teens, maybe 20s. And then as life happens, it disperses. But I think the common bond usually is like when you're helping each other, or you meet somebody, and then it's like, sometimes it's, probably school. You met certain ones in school, usually by alphabet, because your names were, so like, if you were towards the end of the alphabet or beginning of the alphabet, some of that. So some friends came from being in homerooms together, right? And then as you go through life and you have your hobbies that you like to do, you may have certain ones that were, hey, you were really like classes in, you had ones you played sports with, or you played golf with, or whatever it may be. So I think you end up having different friends. But then as life gets a hold of you, you end up getting married, have kids, all those type things. The more things dissipate because life gets busier and busier, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I noticed a lot of my friends, if not all of them, came from sports. And as I'm getting into the business world, they also now come through business. So as you mentioned, that common bond is definitely something that will definitely expose the quality of friendships, because you go through things together.
And then like-mindedness.
Right. And like you said, you're a lineman. You have a bunch of brothers that you're relying on together to accomplish one single goal. It's a super powerful thing to have. And I think if you're a parent with younger kids, sports is always a tremendous way to develop those things.
Which then ties into business, because business is that same way. Like business, in most cases, you're not doing one thing, just you doing everything, right? You need other people to do them. So you end up forging friendships through that course of that time. And I think the better your business roles are together, the more friendships that you have.
Right.
And then again, like-mindedness, the more that you're thinking similar things, or when you're growing businesses. I think of different conferences I attend, and I may not see somebody for 6 or 8 months or a year, and then all of a sudden you end up hanging out, you catch up right where you were, and you may know them for 10 or 15 years. And if you need something, they're there. You can pick up the phone. They would answer the question. They would help you. If I needed money, like I think of friends that I could call right now that are not the top 5, but they are still really close friends. And if they called me, I would do the same thing for them. Anything I need to do to help, happy to help. Right. So I think but that's the like-mindedness of business. But yeah, again, coming back to that 5, or who do you hang around the most? That's the really important part, because you become the average of those 5 people, whether it be a really good person, a really bad person, whatever that may be. And wealth usually comes into it. Is like, you can average those incomes out of those 5 people,
Probably around
and
the
it's
same.
generally about where your income's going to be.
Yeah.
So you always want to level yourself up, and hopefully you're pushing each other because you are like-minded and want to push things along. But I'll never forget, somebody said, the number 1 radio station in the world, what's in it for me? What was it, like WINF or something like that? And I was like, oh, I never heard that before, but what's in it for me? Right. And that's what everybody's always focused on, themselves first. But I think as life seasoning, you tend to worry about more people. You have kids and so forth. So your interest is still what's in it for you, but you also want to develop these friendships. So it's that give and take. And there's just like relationships of, marriages and so forth. There's always give and take. And if there's not enough give and take, and one person's winning the whole time and getting, and the other person's not,
We'll start taking advantage of it. Yeah.
And then friendships start spreading apart.
Yeah. And I think anytime that I evaluate who I spend a lot, I'm very picky with who I spend most of my time with, partially because, like you talk about, a lot of people may not understand what you go through and why you do certain things, like why your time is spent elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes with people that have a lot of time on their hands, maybe they're just not, I don't want to be biased, but they're not doing a lot of things that say they would understand what I go through.
Right.
So that if I can't make a lunch or I can't do X, Y, and Z on a weekday, it's because I'm focused on business stuff. So a lot of my friends now, like you said, are coming from that common goal, that common lifestyle of people that would understand that and say, hey, you got business to take care of. We understand.
And when you say yes to something, means you're saying no to other things.
Correct.
So you have to be careful of that. One commodity you don't get more of is time.
Yeah.
So you really have to pay attention to where you spend it and who you spend it with.
Right.
So it's the activities, but it's also, you're doing these activities in most cases with people that you enjoy being around.
Right.
And are they in alignment with what you want or not?
Right. And I think that's the prerequisite. So when we really break that down, when we decide to pick friends, it usually comes from obviously knowing that you have to be around people that are on the same path as you are, mentally, emotionally, all those things. Like they want to accomplish the same things, but also have an understanding that there's parts outside of that friendship that need to be taken care of as well. Like you say, you're going to have wife and kids, or you got to take care of your personal stuff first.
Right.
So picking those people is also evaluating what do they want too. Is that a person I want to associate my time with? So, but let's also talk about the different kinds of friends, because just because maybe that person doesn't align with maybe your business goals or anything else going on in life, that doesn't mean they can't be your friend.
Sure.
But you talked about there's 5-minute friends, there's 30-minute friends, there's 1-day friend, and then
2 second,
2-second friends.
Acquaintances.
So what do you mean by that? And kind of dive deeper in that.
Again, the time. So who do you want to spend the time with, right? Who aligns with your values? Because values are super important to all of us, right? The values are also, what do we want in life? Where are we going? What's our core value, more or less? But if we spend, certain ones that are super negative, right? You have friends that are like the doom and gloom all the time. Like, I don't want, I know this is going to be a short conversation, or I'm going to make it a short conversation, or short together time, because they're going to bring me down.
Right.
I don't want somebody bringing me down. I don't want somebody tearing me down. That's somebody that's always negative on me. So I want somebody that's going to help build me up. Also, again, like-mindedness. And then who do I enjoy being around? You also, when you're so similar, you have to be careful, because you're going to drive each other nuts as friends because you're so similar. You guys could hang out for a couple of days, but after that, sometimes you're like, I could never be your roommate. You're going to drive me nuts. Yeah. So I think of, good friends that I've had over the years. One I was roommates with, and me and him were best friends for a long time. And then a girl came along, and all of a sudden he's moving out. I'm like, what about the lease? So thankfully,
damn, you only have to dry on that.
Yeah. So, and it happened later in life. We were really good friends for 20 plus years, and then he was going through a divorce and stuff, and it was just like,
I think when I evaluate who I spend most of my time with, I have kids that I went to high school with, and they're a great time, like partying and having those moments together. But then there's an element to that where it's like you don't want to get too caught up in it, because like you said, you are who you hang around. Birds of a feather flock together is a saying. You are the closest of your 5 friends. Who you become will end up probably what those people end up becoming. So I know there's a ton of kids that I love to party with, but that was it. You're not going to see me on a weekday having lunch with them talking about Obviously,
Or the time when you had your girlfriend, like when you
Right,
had girlfriends,
right.
because you go through times with your girlfriends,
Correct.
you're not hanging out with them because they know you're going to get in trouble.
Correct.
Or
right. And obviously that sometimes the friends take a back seat because, like I said, when I was in a relationship, I had to put a lot of that on the back burner and focus on our relationship to see where it ends up. And you don't want to get too caught up in it because then even though you may be good, you get associated with those people.
Well, that comes back too because your really good friends will still be there. So like when you go through with with the girlfriend, and then you don't see that friend, you're going to talk to them periodically, but they don't see you for months, right? But then you pick back up right where you left off. Usually that's the good friends that you can count on because no matter what, they know, like cycles of life because they go through it too. And as you're in relationships or out of relationships, that's your person, that's your friend, right? They're always there to help support you. They're help to build you up. When you're having bad days, they're the ones going to lead you on to the things, not, again, tear you down, because the tear you down ones are the 2 minute or less ones that I don't want to be around.
Yeah, could you, now tying into this, just because there's different levels of friendships, now like the ultimate level, like best friend, right? Mm-hmm. Can your significant other, wife, husband, whatever, could that be your best friend too?
Yeah, and it usually does become that way too. I've been married for 20 plus years, and she's like my best friend, right? But then I have other ones that are best friends that I'm not going to have the same, like, similar relationships. Their best friends are great to hang out with, good to play golf. We go to different places, but I ain't sleeping with them. So it's like, but they're like, but you think of relationships and friendships, right? So it's like, where do things go? Also, it's a give and take no matter what. Friendship and relationship are both give and take both times, where so many people get what's in it for me and they're digging at that. And then they run over the person that they're friends with. They're like, well, now all of a sudden you're either not friends any longer, or you have some conversations, some hard conversations, or sometimes it's just time that it'll just drift away. Because you can think of friendships over the years that kind of just drift apart and you're like, I'm not really sure what happened there.
Right.
But
yeah, I think life naturally will kind of, so many things go on in your life, and that you prioritize, right? And then I think some people take it the wrong way, and some people are pretty good with it and understanding. And I asked you this question actually on the phone today. How do you draw the line? How do you have that discussion? Or maybe it's not a discussion, it's what you do. Maybe it's some action related to kind of like make it clear, like, this person is not someone that I want to be around all the time.
Because it comes back to values again.
Yeah. Morals,
values, whatever's important to you as, like, in your life period. And I don't mean just like money values. It's like, I value family. I value the time with them. I value, just, being a good person in society, rather than like going in and you're a wrecking ball, because there's people, you see it, like, they're a wrecking ball. They're so like a recluse when they go into a place. They're so freaking loud and like, all right, that's not the person I want to surround myself with. I want somebody that's going to be good, like, give back to the community, spend time getting to know people. Like, even when I go to conferences, I meet people, or go to wherever, I'll end up meeting one or two people and have like a deep conversation with them and get to know them very well, rather than
surface level.
Yeah, rather than just going really wide with just common questions.
So it's like how you approach it. It's very subtle. It's like, I'm going to get to really dive deep into this person to figure out who they are, versus the 5-minute friend is going to be more of surface level. How's everything going? Oh, great. How baseline stuff. But the person that you really care about, you go deep. How's your family? What's going on mentally? Like, all those things. I think that's a good perspective. I've always wondered that, because I have those friends that will try to, like, kind of move themselves or force themselves into what I'm doing all the time. It's like,
because we talk about key points that you hit in a conversation with somebody, it's family, occupation, recreation, dreams, right? And when you have that kind of, like, that's kind of what I want to talk through when I'm getting to know somebody, or getting, like, maybe I haven't talked to them in a couple, a month, or I think of past clients that are really good, have become really good friends over the years. And I'll just check, like, hey, what's new? How is your family doing? How's your daughter? Hey, I knew that she just bought a condo recently. You still renovating? This was a conversation I had this week. And I was like, are you done renovating yet? And he's like, never done renovating. So, just some of the stuff that happens. They're getting ready to go on a cruise. But you develop these relationships, and age doesn't really matter. I have friends that are 80 plus years old, and I have friends that are 20.
Right.
Like, I think of my grandson, he's a friend too. He's 11 years old. But it's like, you spend time with these people, but you're also trying to give back and build up. And I think that's one of the big things where so many people worry about what's in it for me and not what can they do to help that person, especially today. I mean, like you think of ever since COVID, people communicate differently.
Yeah.
And there's more depression. There's more there's more drug addiction. There's more, I was talking to somebody else as a firefighter yesterday. And she was saying like, oh my God, I have more calls now than ever. And I was like, all right, well, tell me a little bit more about that. I was like, what's the cause? And she said, more accidents. I was like, well, what's causing an accident? Is it more drugs and stuff? And since marijuana is legal, I'm like, yeah, people think they can smoke it while they're driving. And I'm like, all right, it's no different than alcohol or worse, and then it leads into other things. And so I just think that people are too much what's in it for me, or trying to numb themselves and deal with the world, versus if you communicate more and you have those deeper relationships and conversations, amazing how you can help each other.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think most people have because of how our society has evolved to being able to bury yourself and consume like overstimulating information through your phone.
Yeah.
You're not forced, or you can be in a comfortable numbing state without having to face your inner thoughts. Yeah. So like you talk about, having a good friend is critical to be able to have those conversations. To be
able to put this thing down.
And for years, I struggled to even have deep conversations with anybody, because like I always like buried it. That's how I handled with it. And I've grown past that to go deep with, whether it be you, even my dad. For a long time, I didn't say a lot of things. I just felt like it was uncomfortable. Right. It's not something that we really
you guys
did.
Would battle a lot too,
yeah,
right?
we would turn into an argument or something. Right. But I've learned to do that. And even with my friend Ben, like me and him always like bust each other's balls, and we've always had that like goofy relationship. Yep. It was never serious to the point where we're like going really deep into our problems sometimes mentally. And I think as you get older, mature, and recognize that you have to do that and not bury it is important. So
yeah, the more you talk about it, I mean, you need somebody to be able to talk and be able to go deep with them, because you're not going to just go up to a stranger and start unloading your dirty laundry, right? Yeah. People don't want to hear it. Yeah. But when like I think of different friends that are going through stuff, and I'm like, all right, you said let's go meet. They're like, hey, let's get together, grab lunch or whatever, and like tell me what's going on. And you start listening to problems, right? And then acknowledge. You have to be there and understand what they're going through. Yeah. I think the more you go through life, you deal with different things that hit you in the face, right? So, and I just usually when we're done, I'm like, all right, I listened to your problems. Do you want to feel better now? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, I'll give you some of mine. And you start unloading. And they're like, holy shit, how do you deal with this? Yeah. I was like, just like anything else, right? You're peeling an onion, or that saying, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. But you got to stay forward and thinking like, how can I help this person? And sometimes they don't need help. You don't need to figure anything out. They just need to get it out. So when you're listening, therapists, I think people have therapists more than ever. And a lot of the time that therapist is not asking a lot of questions. Like, tell me what's going on. Oh, tell me a little bit more about that. Yeah. And
just letting you just expel it out and get it out.
Yeah. And once they get it out, that's usually, and then, okay, well, and the other thing I think with friends and so forth is like, all right, when you're going through those bad or negative stuff, or you need to get it out, and then, all right, what are you grateful for? And I think when we come back to gratitude, amazing how much better we feel, and realize how much we do have to be grateful.
Yeah. I think that's an element when you're talking to your friends or the people that are really important to you. I think that's what I'm starting to realize, is that the real friends are the people you can have those personal, very deep conversations that are very vulnerable.
Yeah.
You share that information, you're going to find out real quick how good of a friend they are by how they handle that.
And how much are they paying attention, right? Are they actually listening?
Yeah.
Or are they too busy getting ready to talk, or are they paying attention to their phone and not really listening to what's going on?
Yeah. Which I think that touches on that next point that we were touching, is like what makes a great friend. I think so many people worry about, well, it's how do they bring value to your life? But is that really what it is? I think it's a mutual bond. Being able to be vulnerable like that is what we just talked about. That's a prime example. Like being able to say, I have this problem that I don't want to tell anybody, and you're the only person I can go to. If you're able to handle that, to me, is what defines a great friend. Agreed. What would you say for you?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people don't listen enough, and I'm probably one of the worst with this with my wife too, because she'll be like, I just want to be heard, and then I'm trying to figure out like, how do I help? And she's not looking for a solution.
She don't want the solution. She just
like
wants to
needs to get it out. And sometimes, so when we're very solution oriented or like trying to fit like Mr. Fix It type. Sometimes you just need, and I've said to her sometimes, just tell me that you just need to get this out, and that way I know, like I can just listen, not I'm listening and then trying to find a solution. So that's helpful for that other person, I would say, if you can say that ahead of time. That helps you get it out and just be able to get it out.
Yeah, every girlfriend that I had, that they all did the same thing. I'm always very solution oriented. If I have a problem, I always look
It's
at it.
usually a male thing.
Yeah. And I think I always struggle because I'm like, well, you're telling me all this, and it's a big problem, but let's create a solution for it. And it's just like, I don't want a solution right now. Right. I just need you to just sit there, and sometimes,
and that's what friends are for too, right?
It's like, yeah, it's frustrating because I'm always like, well, no more whining, like let's get it done. That's just how I was, and I'm getting so much better at it. Before I was like, all right, well, I can't deal with this. But
yeah,
as I matured, I definitely have understood like the psychological and emotional effect when you do just sit down, listen to them, and get what they want out of it. They respect that so much more.
Yeah, and you're not zoning out, not paying attention. You're really listening to the words that are using. And I would tell you, from us doing role play so much in business wise, and practicing and paying attention to body language, paying attention to facial expressions, and listen to the actual words that they're saying, not this is what I thought I heard. So when you really listen to the words, and then if you recap, like you said, this is what you meant, that will really help in a relationship, because that way you're validating, because sometimes it's no, and now you may have a story going, because it happens with friends all the time.
Right.
We like have an interaction. It's quick. We're not like, our mind's on 50 other things. We say something that comes across wrong. Now this person is pissed off. Now this story's going in their head. So now the next time you guys see each other, this is what they remember.
Right.
Was the
it's
story.
All perspective at that point. And that's probably the largest thing is being a good listener. What you said is just being a good listener as a whole on the listening side.
And it's not easy.
Right. And then, but for me also, what defines a relationship is, can I even get to that position with you to sit down one-on-one and go really a deep dive. So I would agree. I think being a really good friend, or what makes a good friend, is being in the toughest parts and being in very uncomfortable positions in your life, and be able to have those very deep, vulnerable conversations that, no one else may know.
Yeah.
That's
and you had asked earlier, like, where do you end up making friends? And it usually comes back to different places you put yourself in. So work, so that's a big one. Your curriculum, like I think in the morning going to the gym, I've met really good people that are really, like, good friends. Like, hey, we're having the best of times in there, getting our workout done. We'll talk, like a couple minutes in the end, couple minutes in the beginning, and then they'll do a party every so often. So we go to a party for the gym, and then you're having more casual, like down to earth, or we've helped several of them business wise because they see similar work ethics. Like, oh, this person gives it all they got, not, hey, they're half-assed.
Right.
Like my dad always said, everything you're gonna do, you ever give it all you got, or don't do it at all.
Yeah.
So, and you see that when other people have that like-mindedness, now that's your natural attraction to friendship, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be sports, or it could be, God, I'm just trying to think of like where I've met.
I mean, even your
most.
family too. Like, I mean, cousins, like, not like, internal family. I think there's just another level with that. But like, even my distant cousins who, when I was younger, I wasn't close with, just because of the age difference. But now, like, he's probably my best friend, you know, and
similarities, right?
Yeah. And we were like, if I had an older brother, that's who he would be. So that relationship and that friendship has gone beyond just like obviously being blood related versus something else. But let's go to the next point. This is probably the big one, is how to create a really good, strong inner circle of friends. We talked about the 5-minute friends. We talked about the 2-minute friends, but let's talk about the lifelong friends that no matter what, you're going to be there for. So let's pick some 3 things, and you could start each on what you would evaluate for someone that would be in your inner circle.
So like-mindedness, number one. Are they a good person? Do they match values? Super important. Do they get along with, say if it's me and my wife, do they get along?
Yeah.
Because if they don't get along, they're probably not going to be super good friends, and I can't spend much time with them.
Right.
But if they are, then that helps make it. I think of like Chris we had on before.
Mm-hmm.
We've been friends for 35 years. We're very similar in certain ways and very different in certain ways.
Right.
So I think that you're looking at, but values is such a big thing. We have the same like family values, work ethics, those type things, where a lot of people don't have that, right? So when I see somebody that doesn't put the time in and I'll maybe be friends with them, but I'm not going to be the same level of friendship just because the like-mindedness is not there and their values are not the same.
Yeah, I would agree. If I were to pick my three, number one is, does that person have my best interest? Are they somebody that wants me, like, they're not a friend that, oh, I want you to do well as long as it's not better than me.
Right.
That to me is a big pet peeve that I would have with people, because I recognized as I got older, it's like, you start doing good things, they're going to find a way to either deter you, distract you, or remove you. And whether it's you're in a relationship and they're not, or your job's doing really well and theirs isn't, I can't be with people that look at that as a bad thing. Like, I want you to do better than me and push me, like you talked about. And the second thing I would say is the core value aspect. Is this somebody that aligns with what I believe spiritually, emotionally, those things? That's something that honestly is pretty reasonable. Mm-hmm. Do you have that perspective on life that, like, you care for people, you generally like look out for everybody? Because if you're able to do that with strangers, you're going to do it with the closest people to you. And then I would say the last thing is, are they driven? My lifelong friends can't be mopes.
Right.
They can't be mediocre and accept mediocrity. That goes beyond work. That goes beyond
what's your work ethic?
How much do you work on yourself to be the best version possible? I want to be around that inner circle of bosses in every part of their life. I don't want to be around the toxicity and stuff and the nonsense, because those people, believe it or not, are probably going to cause the turmoil in your life too. So I think it's super important for me, at least, to have all those three. And everybody may be different. We all have different perspectives, but those three big things, I think, can really decipher who I spend. And I can tell you, I only have 2 or 3 lifelong friends because they align with all those things, at least on my side. Yeah.
Well, not in a way. I mean, so I have really good friends that are neighbors in Ocean City. I have really good friends that are neighbors in Florida. So I don't, like, up in Florida, we don't go for 6 months, right? And then I go a week, a month or so. And you're seeing them and you end up hanging out with some of the same people because, again, like-mindedness, they either own a business or like a higher level in their position. They generally work out. They generally eat pretty well. They do like to have a good time. Right. It's like, you have those similarities, and that's who you hang out with the most, right? Because you enjoy being around them. Not like, this is work. If you feel like it's work that you're around that person, or you don't know what to talk about, probably not a good friend. Right. It's just, and that's fine. Like,
if you go hang out with them, the conversation is going to be different. Yeah. It's going to be something that when you leave, like, I'd love to leave conversation and be like, hell yeah, like, I'm ready to go. Yeah. Rather than, God, jeez, that's a mess.
Right.
And you just feel sluggish and low energy. I don't like that. I have to be around, like, high energy people, high frequency, that are moving forward. They're not worried about the past. They're not worried about stuff that they can't control. Let's all together as a unit, like, grow, together.
And there's going to be segments that they all deal with that, right?
Yeah.
They deal with stuff that they can't control. And I'm like, only thing, they just need a reminder sometimes, and then you get them back out of it. But overall, your values line up. And I would say that comes out of conversation, but it is digging a little bit with the conversation, not superficialness. When you start digging and you're around each other more and more, that you see, again, like-mindedness, the working hard. I usually, when I work out, I'll work out with certain ones because I know that they're working, given 90 to 100% of the time, like, you're in that high heart rate, to the point where you can't breathe. I'm like, all right, I don't want to have somebody that's taking it a little bit easier on those days because I'm going to work less.
Right.
Because, again, who you surround yourself with is what happens to you. And then all over time, you're averaging out to those 5 people no matter what.
Yeah. I translate it to this, like, look at, like, if you go walk in a room, I don't want to be in a room full of, like, local superheroes. I don't want to be in a room of regional. I want to be from the international superheroes. Yeah. I want the big dogs in the room that are accomplishing the things that I haven't, or they're on the same path as me. And those are the people that, like, are going to push you.
Yeah.
And they're going to obtain all the things that you're after. Now, not everybody's driven, though. You know, so that for the audience, like if you're somebody, you're like, well, I'm not that type of person. That's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You know, you like people have their own sector of what's important. Maybe it's the people that you're
They
somebody
don't
that's
understand
yeah. Maybe I struggle in my relationships. But I want to be around people that have good relationships to see what that looks like, and they're going to push me to be better. So, you know, that's the way I view it.
But I was teasing with you earlier. It's like also you have to know your limitations, right?
Yeah.
So I'm married with kids and grandkids and stuff, and I'm like, we had hung out Saturday for a little while. But Tracy came, and so I couldn't hang. We could hang out at a restaurant. I can't hang out at midnight with you going to a club because I'm going to get myself in trouble because I'm somewhere I shouldn't be.
Right.
So you always have to know what, and then plus I'm in bed at a certain time. Like all these things that come into play that are more important to me because again, as your values change as you get older. I'd rather make sure that I get good sleep that night. Because I know it's going to affect my next day, and then what's my next day coming into. So that all stems from friendships, though, too.
Yeah.
And then who is it that's filling you up? Who is it that's emptying you out?
Right.
Because the ones that are emptying you out are the lesser time that you're spending with them. And if you're spending a lot of time with them, you probably need not to because you feel drained.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And you know, from this whole episode, I think it really entails a bunch of things. One, evaluating the people. So focusing on what's important to you first and how are you going to be around people that align with that. Second thing is, you know, understanding that they are just because you have these goals and ambitions doesn't mean that you can't be around people that are different than you. You just understand that there's different levels to where you're progressing, and you could call it elite. People say it's elitist or whatever, but it's like you're different too. I want you to hang out with the people that want to do the same thing you do because whatever you do doesn't mean I want to do it. So that's the second part is there are different levels to this. The third one is how do we create a great inner circle? You know, how do you be around this, whatever works best for you that's going to progress you in the right direction? So those are the three things that we hope we got to you guys clear enough, and we always appreciate all of you viewing it. So like, subscribe, comment. Lee, you want to send it off?
Yeah. Thanks so much for watching. Again, who are the 5 that you're surrounding yourself with the most? That's one of the most important things. And go deep. Don't worry about going wide. So I hope that helps you. Take care.
Thanks, guys.